proof and definition of God using inductive, scientific, and deductive, philosophical, reasoning. There are only four logical possibilities of our existence, the Qur'an says, or were they created by nothing? Or were they the creators, of themselves? Or did they create heavens and earth? Rather, they are not certain. Qur'an 52, 35-36, things that began to exist were either, 1. Created or brought into being from nothing, 2. Self-caused or self-created, 3. Created or brought into being by something else that began to exist, 4. Created or brought into being by a non-created or uncaused entity. The above argument assumes that the universe began to exist. Did the universe begin to exist? According to the following deductive and inductive arguments, the universe had a beginning and cannot be eternal. 1. The second law of thermodynamics, the law says that the entropy of the universe, disorder of energy, increases over time. That is, when the universe began, the gravitational singularity was extremely dense and the universe at that time was very hot. As the universe begins to expand, it also cools down. Since the universe hasn't yet suffered a heat death, it strongly indicates that the universe is finite, meaning it began to exist. Otherwise, if it had existed forever, it would have completely lost all its heat. 2. The absurdity of an infinite history of past events. Some might argue that another universe gave birth to this universe and so on. To demonstrate the contradiction of having infinite past events in our existence, we must first differentiate between real infinite and potential infinite, used in mathematical formulas. An example of potential infinite, in a mathematical formula, say you have an infinite number of balls. If I take 2 balls away, how many do you have left? Infinite. In the real world, you should have 2 balls less in your infinite number of balls, which means you should now be able to count the number of balls. But this is impossible, because the infinite is just an idea and doesn't exist in the real world. 3. Astrophysical evidence. The idea of Big Bang was born when our Hubble's observations indicated that everything seems to be moving away from each other. In other words, the universe is effectively expanding. As time moves on, the universe continues to expand. But if time is reversed, the theory is that everything starts to coalesce and come together. This means that the universe began at a cataclysmic event which created space-time and all matter, energy in the universe. This is what astrophysicists mean by the Big Bang. Now that we have sufficiently proven that the universe in which we live began to exist 14 billion years ago due to the aftermath of the emergence and expansion of space-time, the next logical question is what caused it? Let's go back to the logical possibilities the Qur'an presents as rationalizations of the origins of the universe. 1. Created or brought into being from nothing. We know the universe couldn't have come out of nothing, because out of nothing, nothing comes. This is an undeniable philosophical principle. However, nothingness as defined by some physicists relates to the quantum vacuum. This is misleading because the quantum is something. In quantum theory, the vacuum is a field of energy pervading the whole of the universe. In the words of John Polkinghorne, a philosopher of science, the quantum vacuum is not nothing, it is a structured and highly active entity. So, in context of some of the physicists' definition, the universe could not have come from absolutely nothing, as the quantum vacuum is something. It is a sea of fluctuating energy, which is still part of the cosmos, and it did not pre-exist the universe. This point leads us nicely to the next possible explanation. 2. Self-caused or self-created. Philosophically, the universe couldn't have created itself because that would imply a paradox. It would mean that something can exist and not exist at the same time. The logical ends of this explanation are tantamount to saying that your mother gave birth to herself. 3. Created or brought into being by something else that began to exist. If temporal physical existence owes itself to another temporal physical existence ad infinitum, it doesn't explain anything. Rather, it highlights the absurdity of an infinite regress. If U1 depended on its coming into being on a chain of infinite temporal causes, U2, which needed U3 to exist, and U3 needed a U4 and so on, U1 would never exist. As the Islamic philosopher and scholar Dr. Jafar Idris writes, there would be no series of actual causes, but only a series of non-existence, as Ibn Taymiyyah explained. The fact, however, is that there are existents around us, therefore, their ultimate cause must be something other than temporal causes. 4. Created or brought into being by a non-created or uncaused entity, since something cannot come from nothing, and self-creation is absurd, including the unreasonableness of the aforementioned explanation, then the universe being created or brought into existence by an uncaused entity is the best explanation. This concept is intuitive but also agrees with reality. Whatever begins to exist has a cause or a creator. This cause or creator must be uncaused due to the absurdity of an infinite regress, in other words an indefinite chain of causes. The Qur'an confirms the uncreatedness of the Creator, God. He neither begets nor is born. Qur'an 112, 3. The cause or creator for the universe must be a single cause for several reasons. An attractive argument to substantiate this claim includes the use of the rational principle called Occam's razor. In philosophical terms, the principle enjoins that we do not multiply entities beyond necessity. What this basically means is that we should stick to explanations that do not create more questions than it answers. In the context of the cause for the universe, we have no evidence to claim multiplicity, in other words more than one. The Qur'an affirms the oneness of the Creator, say, He is God, who is, one. Qur'an 112, 1. Our argument thus far allows us to conclude that this cause or creator must be non-contingent, meaning that its existence is dependent on nothing but itself. If it were contingent, it would be one more effect in the chain of causes. The Qur'an verifies this: God is independent of all creatures. Qur'an 3:97. The cause or creator must also be transcendent. This means that the cause of the universe must exist outside of and apart from the universe. Since this being exists apart from the universe, it must be non-physical or immaterial. If it was material, then it would be part of the universe. This is confirmed in the Qur'an: there is nothing like unto him, and he is the hearing, the seeing. Qur'an 42:11. This cause must have the power to create the universe. Without this ability, nothing could be created. The Qur'an testifies to God's power. Certainly, God has power over all things. Qur'an 2:20. This cause must have a will, because it wouldn't be able to create the universe without one. What this means is that it must have a will so the power to create could be acted on. The Qur'an refers to God as having a will in many places, for instance, and God guides whom He wills to a straight path. Qur'an 2:213. In summary, we have concluded what the Qur'an concluded over 1,400 years ago, that a creator for the universe exists, that is one, has a will, is powerful, uncaused, immaterial and eternal.